Dutch people tend to be a little bit more introvert side compared to me or to my culture.
The stairs are way too steep, so
Very
just
steep stairs.
yeah, falling down the stairs twice already gave me a bunch of bruises.
Right now, I find like the housing situation is quite challenging here.
So they really rarely let people in.
Hey, it's David and welcome back to my channel. The Netherlands, one of the best places to live in the world. Quality of life here is really high, but it's not perfect. No country is. So I am curious to hear, what are some of the biggest challenges people, especially internationals, face when living in this country? Let's find out. Thank you so much for joining me today. First question is, where are you from?
I'm from Medellin, Colombia.
Colombia. And how long have you been in the Netherlands?
I've been in the Netherlands for 3 years and 9 months.
Okay. What brought
or
you to
take.
this country?
Work.
Work.
Just
Okay.
came for the job. Yeah.
Came for the job. So I'm curious to hear, what do you find the most challenging about living in this country?
Well, the culture is quite different. So that's very, very challenging. Also, there's a little bit of xenophobia going around, and that's also extremely challenging. And just the living conditions are also a little bit complicated, just because the houses are very, very narrow, and you kind of just share one wall with a bunch of people. And the stairs are way too steep. So,
The stairs.
The stairs are way too steep. So
Very
just,
steep stairs.
yeah, falling down the stairs twice already gave me a bunch of bruises.
Okay.
But yeah, mainly just the culture and just getting along with the neighbors has been my most difficult situation living here.
Could you expand on that? The culture has been challenging, getting along with neighbors.
Yeah, so like I said, in my experience, I've been a little bit xenophobic. That's just my experience, and I've come to places that they say, in my neighborhood specifically, just because I'm Colombian, I'm not welcome there, and because I'm not Dutch, I'm not welcome there, and that the Dutch take care of each other, and then threatenings. And when I moved, before I was finished unpacking the van, they started throwing garbage in it. And yeah, just because I have 2 dogs and I have to come to work, then they will say the dogs are barking all the time. And even though when I was at home, because I couldn't move from my bed or whatever, and the dogs were with me, and this woman, just like I said, they were a little bit racist in my perspective, or xenophobic, not really racist. She would call the police, even though when I was in my house with my dogs on my bed, and because she would say that they were barking. So, and there's a lot of dogs in the neighborhood that bark all the time. But even when I'm not home, she says that is my dogs and my dogs are not home. She says that is my dogs that are barking. And yeah, one of the neighbors is a police. I've had a lot of issues with them really in the neighborhood. So, that's been quite challenging.
You also mentioned housing is also a challenge as well.
Finding houses, I find that is really, really hard in the market right now. So it's quite challenging too. And also just because there's the Netherlands it's a little bit kind of overpopulated for the surface that it has. So of course all the houses just go up instead of going horizontal, right? Because it's very expensive.
Yeah.
So you find just these neighborhoods that all the houses are just like growing like a sausage to the top and not a lot of area.
Yeah.
So yeah, and just the fact that you have to, you go into your outside your window and then you see the neighbor on the garden and then the other neighbor on the other garden and the neighbor on top of the other garden. So there's like no privacy whatsoever. And you walk past by and everyone's like on the windows just doing their stuff, and it was like, okay, there's no privacy. So yeah, it's something that I've never been used to.
That's something different, right?
Yeah, it's
The
completely
privacy
different. Yeah,
here.
yeah.
People seem to be more okay with just letting people see inside their
Yeah,
homes.
yeah. That's it's not challenging. It's just, strange.
Something different.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting me.
First question is, where are you from?
I'm from Portugal.
Portugal. And how long have you been living in the Netherlands?
Next year I will be celebrating 20 years in Amsterdam.
20 years. Congrats. And what brought you to this country?
So I came here with my ex-boyfriend 20 years ago. So it was a love story that brought me here. And although we're not together anymore, the truth of the matter, we still both live here, so we're still enjoying the country.
Still enjoying this country, a lot of things to like. But I'm curious to hear from you after 20 years, what do you find the most challenging about living in the Netherlands?
Definitely connecting with people. Dutch people tend to be a little bit more introvert side compared to me or to my culture. That tends to be more on the extrovert side. I feel that it's very difficult to get into the circle of friends of Dutch people. It takes a lot of time to build that trust for them to open up and become your friend.
So really hard to get into that friend group, right? Why do you think it's difficult to get inside that circle group of Dutch people?
I think it's culturally, it's it's their way of interacting with people. I think for them, it's sharing something a little bit more personal means a lot. Even if for me it's just like sharing a detail of my life, what do I do at work, or where did I go for lunch, for them is already too much. Yeah, sometimes it's like that.
Okay. Anything else that you find challenging about living in this country?
I think people tend to be very planned about what they do in life, and sometimes they lack spontaneous. They're not so spontaneous sometimes in their actions or their responses. And for me, sometimes it's difficult to read actually what people mean with their acts or with their comments and points of view. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, people here do a lot of planning versus, I'm assuming in Portugal, things are more spontaneous.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So sometimes it's easy to call a friend and, hey, let's go and have a coffee, or let's go for dinner tonight. And here is like, oh, let me check my agenda and see what I can do next month, you know? So,
Yeah, I can understand and relate to that as well. So thank you so much for sharing.
of course.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. First question is, where are you from?
So I'm ethnically Somali. I was born in the Netherlands, but I grew up most of my time in Egypt. So I just came back to the Netherlands in 2016.
Okay, so very multicultural. And the question today is, what do you find challenging about living or growing up in this country?
So a few things, to be honest. It's not easy living in the Netherlands, as people assume coming to the Netherlands, you're gonna settle in, you're gonna find your footing. I know for a fact it's not easy. You're gonna struggle. For example, it's not easy to make friends in the Netherlands, especially Dutch friends. And also expat, would take a time, effort to meet up, to actually get to know people. Second, I would say housing. So it's not easy to find a place in the Netherlands. Also, most jobs are Dutch. There are a few English-speaking jobs, but the majority are Dutch. And also with the housing, like most people prefer a Dutch-speaking person to rent a house. Yeah, and in this market, it's basically a competition to find a place to live. It's super expensive, so it's not really easy just to adjust your life, move to the Netherlands.
So finding housing is extremely difficult here.
Yes.
And you mentioned something about making friends. When you move to a new place, it's always hard to make friends. Tell me more about making friends with Dutch people.
From experience, I noticed that most Dutch people like to stick in their own circle. So these are mostly friends from the same neighborhood, or they went to the same club, or childhood friends. So they really rarely let people in. Also, I would say that you can be friends. It depends on the context. So you can be friends, like have Dutch friends from work, but they won't really know you as a person. They are more as a colleague friend. rather than a friend who knows you, who knows your likes, dislikes, is there for you. So
So friendly on that surface level, but really
surface
hard to
level.
get into that circle
Yes.
group.
Yeah, but I would say some people manage to do it. So there's always hope, but
Yeah.
it takes really an effort to do that.
And do you think language plays a role, knowing Dutch? Because you know both Dutch and
Yes,
English.
I think the language itself plays a majority of the role. So imagine if you are two people from the same culture, same language, then you automatically switch to that language, even though there is a third person, unless that third person starts in the conversation, then you switch back. But I think people technically they prefer someone from their own culture, own language, someone who knows their cultural background or at least embrace it enough to know enough. So yes,
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
no problem.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. First question is, where are you from?
I'm from India.
And how many years or how long have you been in this country?
Almost 5 years, like precisely to be honest, like today I completed my 5 years.
Wow, congrats on 5 years.
Thank you,
What
David.
brought you to this country?
So there are a range of factors. Primarily, I was doing MBA in India, and then there is an opportunity to pursue on a scholarship like the masters here. And like prior coming to here, I did my study about like the culture and how nice the people are here, the environment and everything. So I think like why I shouldn't give a try.
And now it's been 5 years. And the question I have for you today is, what do you find the most challenging about living in the Netherlands?
That's really a nice question. I would say definitely like it looks quite nice on the outer end, but definitely every country has its own like set of challenges. I think what I find the most challenging is about right now I find like the housing situation is quite challenging here, and the thing is that first of all like it's uh, like there is a lot of people still looking for like even house to rent, like even it's not available at a very higher prices, and top of that it's becoming increasingly tough, like not just for expats, for people living here like to buy any property. So apart from that I would say sometimes I find like the job market is quite challenging sometimes if you are not a native speaker, and especially it also depends upon like which area you are pursuing. Like if you are like from a non-computer science domain, for instance, like an engineering domain or management domain, so you might find it like challenging here. Like you should really do your study before like opting any course in any particular university to avoid those challenges. So I faced that kind of challenge. Like I was being enrolled in a university in which like I was doing business administration. I was the only Asian in that one, and there were around 120 people. So far, I only know around might be 4 people from my MSc, like which is quite weird. So it's very important like you get into some like courses which has more international people. So definitely that was a challenge because Dutch people are quite reserved. They don't easily open up. So these are the key challenges which I faced.
It's hard to get into this circle of friends, Dutch people. What do you think is the reason it's so challenging to make friends with Dutch people?
That's a good question. I I don't know. Like I tried multiple times, try to open up conversations with them, but like I don't like. I think it's their cultural thing. Some cultures are like that, like in which people just don't easily open up unless until like you spend a lot of time and activities with them together. Like for it could take like months or years. So and some cultures are quite open. Like in my culture, I'm from Punjab, so we are quite open. We are quite hospitable and make friends easily. Whereas like I think it's a bit opposite here.
So cultural differences. And one thing I want to hear more about is the housing situation. It's really hard to find housing here. Can you tell me more about your experience looking for housing here?
Yeah, indeed. So first of all, like housing can be classified into like whether you want to buy a house or a property, or you want to rent it. So even if you are considering about renting situation, it's like right now it's pretty bad. And for myself, like even I took just a holidays for 5 just to find a room or apartment for myself. Even like students who are coming here who are already enrolled into courses, universities are saying them, okay, if you're going to be able to find a room, you can go back. So that's really bad. On the other end, like I think, I don't know, like whether it's political or something, like the housings we require on average like 100K houses every year to be built, but it's like below 10,000. So they are getting quite expensive. Like even on your normal salary, you can't be able to like get required mortgage. So yeah, like I think twice like about these situations before coming here.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, David.
There you have it. Do you agree? Disagree? One thing that I want to note is that while there are certain things that we can agree on, such as the housing situation in this country being a big challenge, there are other challenges that come out of the fact that we as a people come from many different cultures, and these cultural differences can bring about some of these challenges. And I think that's also a very unique thing about, well, the world. Anyways, I hope you found this useful, and I'm curious to hear from you. What have been some of your biggest challenges living in this country? Leave them in the comments below, and take care.